Do you know how powerful you are? Welcome to the Risepreneurs Podcast.
Welcome to Risepreneurs.
Reshaping and elevating your mindset to help you achieve what you believe.
Sometimes we don't even see our own greatness. You can't be what you can't see.
And connecting Black cultures to build a community of talent and success.
Black people need to realize that they are assets. You are an asset.
When we rise, you rise.
Come together as a group.
This is Risepreneurs with Terrell Simmons.
Welcome to another episode of Risepreneurs. In this episode, got Dr. Craig in the building. What can I say about him? He's just his energy, his wisdom, his whole spirit and being is just amazing. We went into conversation about his career as a numerologist, and I got to learn a little bit about how numbers play such a significant role in our life. And there's a certain side that he spoke to with the way he's developed his career in numerology with spirituality and being able to connect both of those worlds together. As you'll see in this episode, also some of his lived experience of just talk about history in the flesh, being around during, the death of Martin Luther King, and now being able to see a Black woman as vice president, and then the tragic killing of George Floyd, how these moments in time have differences and the impact in these two moments in times, and looking back on how he sees it from being here on earth and living during both of those times and different phases in life. He has a book that's all about the numbers. Definitely invite you to check it out. Go to his website, and there's something unique that he does with numbers that allows you to tap into yourself to understand who you are, your calling and purpose. And hopefully you get to try it out, see it for yourself. Dr. Craig, ladies and gentlemen.
That made you very wise, even as a young person. You were wiser than your years, as they say.
Wow, I love that whole analogy, and I do resonate with a lot of that. I did. There's a lot of truth in that statement. either you know me very well, or you're in touch with the ancestors and everything else.
I'm a numerologist. That was a definition of the letter Y that I shared with you. Every number and every letter represents a spiritual quality. Mm-hmm. And because we were created by the word of God, the letters in our name and the numbers in our birthday are symbols for the word of God that created us.
Oh, yes. Amen to that.
When is your birthday?
December 7th, 1978.
There's that 7 again. The letter Y, you're born on the 7th.
Uh-huh.
And your year, 1978.
Got a lot of sevens.
Did you say 78?
Yeah, 78. That was correct, sir.
Okay. If you add 1 plus 9 plus 7 and 8, it adds up to 25. And 2 plus 5 is 7.
Oh, wow.
So it's a lot of number 7s in your chart. And that is indicative of strong intuitive power, the need to spend time alone. On the 7th day, God rested. So you need quiet time by yourself. Okay, what was your day again?
December 7th, 1978.
Oh, December. Okay. So it's 377. That's your month, day, and year. 377. December is a 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. So it's 12 and 7 is 19. 19 and 25 is 44. Awesome.
Okay.
That's a master number.
All right.
That's a master number. The number 44 is called the Master Liberator Vibration, and it was expressed by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was a 44, and so was Nelson Mandela. So your advice and counsel can set other people on their path of liberation.
Really? Your
focus is more within and your intuitive side. I'll put it this way. You knew about The Secret before the book came out and got popular. You're kind of wired that way intuitively. So the 7 is a number of faith, so you're a mountain mover. You're a mountain mover. You never have to worry about how things are. You just have to get alone or near some water or mountainside, countryside, a serene environment, and visualize, and you can materialize.
Wow. That's powerful. Thank you for that.
Yes, you are. The only challenge you face is follow through. You're very, 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 very creative. So you got a lot of things going on, and you're dropping some things that will take you where you want to go. So the challenge is to follow through and to limit your focus to no more than 4 things at a time. Most people can't do that, but you can take on much more. So you have to limit it to just 4 things at a time, and you'll start to manifest your ideas, and you'll feel, okay, I'm not spinning my wheels, coming home tired, but I haven't accomplished anything.
Yeah,
so
that is spot on, because in these last, especially since the pandemic, there's been an increased productivity on certain things. And then because I was able to have that time alone,
that quiet time
to focus and isolate. Pre-pandemic, I had a lot of things going on, so my will.
Yeah, I see it now. Just juggling. Somebody throw a ball. Oh, I can do that too. But with the pandemic, that slowed everything down.
Yeah.
And that's been a benefit, not only as you praised it, but it's also been a benefit to the planet. Getting us back in touch with slower times and truer values. I think Trump represented how far off we had gotten.
Yeah, I agree.
But now we're back on track.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I share with people information about their name and their birthday. The birthday reveals God's part of the contract. The name reveals our part of the contract. And like the prophet Jeremiah, we have a contract with God before we're formed in the womb. But we come with an owner's manual most people aren't aware of.
Yeah, I agree with that. If people start to look more within, they will find everything that they need and more.
Exactly. And that's the message from the number 7 to the people. That's what you're here to share. 7s come with a shovel, and they're here to discover treasures and share them with others. So you also have an ability for written and verbal communication. God wouldn't give you the ability to find treasure if you didn't have the ability to share your findings.
Yeah.
So you're also a writer.
Yeah. So how did you get in touch with this unique gift that you have that you are sharing with me today? Give me, when did you first learn that you had it, and how did you begin to harness it?
Well, my ability before I answer that, I have to say this. There's a difference between figures and numbers. Okay. For example, if I hold up this recorder and I said, I have 1 recorder, that's a figure. But if I say, Olympus recorders are number 1, that's not a quantity, that's a quality of being the best. See the difference?
Yeah.
One is for quantity, the other represents a quality. Number 1, the best. So I started off being very, very good with figures. In the 7th grade, I got A's in math and science, and my parents decided I was going to be an engineer.
Okay.
So I got every math course, every science course they could imagine all year long. Summer school, seminars, workshops. My mother was a school teacher, so I was never out of school.
Yeah.
So I'm preparing to become an engineer. I wanted to go into the Air Force, fly jets, become an engineer, had life all planned out. And my best friend died from a drug overdose, and I didn't even know he was using.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. That stopped everything. My roots weren't deep enough for that experience. Up until then, I was an atheist. I didn't believe in God.
Yeah.
I thought God was a figment of people's imagination or a crutch for the weak. If you couldn't measure it, quantify it, I was a technocrat. I was a technocrat. But when that happened, for the first time, I began to pray. And I asked God, why was I here? What was the meaning of life? I wasn't going any further. You could take me now. I need answers.
Yeah.
That's where I was. So from that state of yearning, I heard a song. And the song was by Roy Ayers. It was called Everybody Loves the Sunshine. That's the album. It was on an album called Everybody Loves the Sunshine. They played a cut from that in the Super Bowl this year. But the song that I heard that intrigued me was on a jazz station, Morgan State University Radio, and it was called In Search of the Third Eye. And the lyrics went, baby, 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 look to the sky, seeking to find the third eye. Secrets of numbers, secrets of sound, secrets of wisdom can be found. Well, I wanted to know. So that song just mesmerized me. I bought the album, read the jacket cover. There was no Amazon or Google, so it took me 2 years to find a book that the author of the song had read, and it was called In Search of the Third Eye by Vera Stanley Alder, and that was my introduction to numerology.
Okay, nice.
I started reading about the secrets of numbers. Every number has a meaning. Everybody knows number 1 is leadership, 2 is patience, 3 is expression, 4 is work, 5 is freedom, 6 is service, 7 is faith, that's your number, 8 is money and power, and 9 is selfless giving. So I began to study those numbers, and it started feeding me. These were the answers I was looking for. So that's how I got started. It was the death of my closest friend.
So what's your number, just out of curiosity?
My month, day, and year add up to the number 7. My year of birth, 1951, adds up to 16. That's a 7. My name is a 7. And my vow total is a 7.
So no wonder you know me so well.
Yeah. I was just talking about myself. Exactly. And that's what I discovered. I said, wow, I'm a 7. And I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, studying mysteries of life. But then the next part came. It was time to share with others. That was the hard part. This was back in 1972, and people weren't as awoke as they are now. So I was definitely the oddball talking about secrets of numbers and secrets of sound. So people were getting as far away from me as they could. They didn't know what was going on with me. So I began to pray and ask, what should I do? So I started off in the seminary. Didn't stay there long. They didn't want to hear about third eye and none of that stuff. Even though it's in the Bible, raining 40 days, 40 nights, name changes, all this is based on the science of numerology. So I ended up going to the University of Metaphysics. After doing a great deal of study on my own. For years, I would go to the Library of Congress and just read the books they had there. That's the only thing that was available. But now there's a numerology for dummies. Numerology for dummies. You can go to any library and get it.
Yeah.
So this dawning of the age of Aquarius thing, I've lived through it, and I've seen it happen. Whereas people were running from me, now people are seeking me out. So I realized God was preparing me in those early years so I'd be ready for now.
Yeah. That's so true. I'm finding that to be true now in my career and life. Everything that I had endured from being the black sheep when I was younger is allowing me to be the prominent leader that I am today, and everything that I experienced has prepared me for this moment.
And it was a test to see if you would stick to that path and listen to God's voice as opposed to the naysayers, the doubters, the haters, as they're called today. And that's the test that the number 7 has to face, you know?
Yeah. And I must say, there in that test of faith, there were some dark times where I'm like, no, maybe I should just switch gears here. Maybe I need to stop holding on to this. This thought.
It cost me my first marriage.
Yeah.
It cost me my first marriage. I was given an ultimatum. You're either going to choose this numerology stuff or me. I said, you or God. Sorry, dear, if that's how you want it. I'll be over every weekend to see the kids. So yeah, when you're a 7, you have to give up something you're attached to. That's the test. You will be asked to give up something, at least one thing that you're very, very attached to when you're a number 7. That's the test.
That is the test.
It's a test of faith.
What is your doctorate in? Like, what did you get your doctorate in?
I ended up going to the University of Metaphysics, so my PhD is in metaphysical counseling. But I kind of did it backwards. I was doing metaphysical counseling. As a numerologist, I was already doing metaphysical counseling, and God came to me and says, it's a credentialism world, Craig. I want you to go to this school. Because I couldn't find it any place else, but I was guided to the University of Metaphysics. It's a distance learning.
Like that was like, I wonder if he was able to infuse that into the numerology, because it seems like it could work hand in hand with each other. But you answered that question. But
Yeah.
welcome everybody to another episode of Ricepreneurs. Me and Dr. Craig was just getting right into it. When you see your soul brother and he starts speaking your language, you sometimes forget that you're on the show. I
I didn't realize we had started either.
Yeah, we had started because you started getting into some really good. So what I've learned in doing these podcasts is that sometime in the introduction we get into great conversation. So I try to start hitting record as soon as we start. So as soon as we start going off, I missed maybe a minute of it, but I hit record. It's like I know we're gonna get something good in here today.
That's a great approach.
To tell you a little bit more, like back in the time when I was doing what you were doing, trying to share all the knowledge and information I learned from whether I read it internally or however I acquired that knowledge, I go out to different communities, especially the people that look like us, schools and so forth. And what I often find is we have limiting beliefs of whether who we are, who we could be. And these limiting beliefs manifest in other ways in our trajectory of success in navigating the world. And so I really want to start a podcast like this where we can have these conversations like we're having today, unlock some of those mental beliefs, as Bob Marley would say, free yourself from mental slavery.
Only we can do.
Yeah, only we
to free ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
I'm hoping as we start to see more of us having these conversations and these dialogues, it will unlock something in somebody else, and then they can go share, and they'll unlock, and then the cycle continues. So I greatly appreciate you being on here today.
That's the true method of change. Mm-hmm. It only occurs from within. When each person journeys within, I lived through Martin Luther King assassination, the Kennedy assassination, when everybody was excited. We had the White House, the Senate, we had marches in the street, and pop, pop, it was all over. So that's what taught me the true revolution is within. Mm-hmm. That's where true and lasting changes occur. We've been talking about freedom for years, but when everybody around the world saw what happened to George Floyd, that was a gut level reaction. And there was a global response to that, to Black Lives Matter. Okay, so you've got to reach people within. And there are souls like the Christ who came here to sacrifice himself for us. And the name Jesus is a number 11, and the name George Floyd is also a number 11. So the number 11 energy is about sacrificing yourself for your ideals. And George Floyd was a great soul. He was a great soul who had a contract to change the world by sacrificing his physical shell, because I believe the spirit lives on and on and on and on. It can't be destroyed. The first thing they teach us in physics is energy can be neither created nor destroyed. I said, what? You mean God is real? Why aren't y'all telling everybody? Why are you saying it like that?
So as you know, here's what I would like to know from your point of view. You were around for when Martin Luther King got assassinated, and you're here today when the George Floyd situation happened. Here it is. We have two different decades, two different eras. A Black man gets assassinated and a Black man gets murdered. Both changed the trajectory of our country emotionally and mentally and physically and spiritually. But what's so different about both of those moments in time in your essence, in your opinion? What was the catalyst? What was the energy like, and the difference between both of these significant moments in history?
Well, I think they were in one aspect similar, because as you said, it helped move things forward. But the difference was when during Dr. King's assassination, during those times, there was a majority of the people who weren't in favor or did not have that same belief that he had. People were saying, okay, separate but equal. We'll give you stuff separate but equal. Or, okay, we'll let you have this. We'll plan out something in a few years from now. But he was about, no, now is the time. Let's energize. And his model was Gandhi. He saw what Gandhi did fighting the British, the biggest empire on the planet. They said the sun never set on the British Empire. Those guys they had their hands on everything. And without firing a shot, because they would have lost if they took arms. They were ready for that. Gandhi showed how passive resistance and faith, prayer, and meditation and belief is the stronger force.
Mm-hmm.
And he was King's example. So King practiced that. King practiced that. We had over here, we had never heard about this nonviolent thing. I didn't hear about Gandhi till they made the movie, so I wasn't aware. We didn't have the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Things people weren't as worldly and as aware. And that's the main difference with the George Floyd incident. Everybody in the world had access to those videos and saw it live, not reading about it, not hearing about it, but witnessed it with that guy with his knee on his neck for 9 minutes, right there, and could hear him calling out. That was the major difference, because just people had a more ability to experience it, and it just thrust everything forward. I saw people from countries I had never even heard of carrying signs saying Black Lives Matter. So it was a global awakening, a global consciousness, and an uplifting of global togetherness, if you will. And that's how I view this pandemic. It's going to require that we work together. It doesn't matter if we get numbers down in North Carolina, if in South Carolina the numbers are 80% positive. It doesn't matter if the U.S. controls, if in Jamaica things are out of control. As long as one person or one individual is dealing with this situation, one community, it can affect us all.
Yeah.
So this is a universe telling us to step it up. We are one. May said it. We are one. We are one. Well, we're starting to realize that now. Our children are just going to take these things for granted. The things that we fight for become their norm.
Yeah, this is so true. I even see it in my daughter now. And partially I am to blame because I have spoiled her to not need and want the things that I needed, growing up. But with that comes another level of entitlement. So I struggle with this. How do I make sure the next generation, including her, she doesn't take for granted the things we fought for, but at the same time, I want her to start the conversation at a different place from where we started it from, so she advances things forward, right? I don't want her to live in the past. Yes. I want her to move forward, but I want her to know that, hey, this thing that you enjoying did not come on a silver spoon.
Freedom's not free.
Yeah.
Yeah, freedom's not free. There are people who are making tremendous sacrifices, tremendous sacrifices. And like you said, we can't forget that. We can't forget that. There were people who died for the right to vote. And then what do we have, like 40 or 50% turnout of registered voters?
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing that changed. We saw states that were traditionally red turn blue. I don't like those terms, but that's how they speak of it. We saw populations who, as you put earlier in the show, who just didn't see themselves or couldn't visualize their vote even mattering, being urged tied to George Floyd, and not just George Floyd, but in Baltimore, there was a guy there suffered the same fate through a rough ride all around the nation, but it just reached a swelling point where people, the same energy that got people out on the streets, took them to the polls. Took them to the polls. I hope that that level of consciousness stays there. But it was because of that we were able to put the new president in the White House. We saw states that were traditionally Republican, Democrat, because people who would not vote before got registered and, by golly, made it to the polls.
Yeah.
Made it to the polls. And thank goodness we have a president now who has recognized that and has vowed to respond.
Yeah.
Vowed to respond. So there's a new block out there, a new block of voters that's been totally ignored, a new coalition that they're going to have to respond to.
Yeah.
And that's how politicians live.
Yep.
So things are looking up.
Things are definitely looking up. Talk about, things looking up and things changing and so forth for the new norm. I remember having a conversation with my friend the other day, and we were talking about, in my lifetime, I never thought I would see a Black president. And now in my lifetime, I've seen a Black president and a female Black vice president. And my daughter's growing up and seeing that. She's thinking that's normal. Like, for me, that's not normal.
Exactly. I had the same thought. I thought to myself, wow, during those 8 years Barack Obama was president, people were having kids. So there's kids being born, and that's all they would have known would have been a black president. I don't know if they're politically aware enough to realize that, but yeah, that's their norm. That was their norm. So what do you mean? What do you mean? There's no equity, no fairness. Well, we got to see it. We got to see it when the Capitol was attacked. We got to see the difference in the response to folks that did that. And the whole time I was watching that show with my wife, we were saying how they would have probably brought in napalm if there were other people doing that and just took everybody out.
Yeah, they would
Then
have
I
cleared
hear the
that street
feedback.
quickly.
Then you hear the feedback. Oh, they made a couple hundred arrests. Are you kidding me? They would have dropped the net on us and scooped everybody up. So definitely was a difference in response, and people saw that too, and that's raising some eyebrows. So there's a few commissions that's been formed to investigate that. So I hope they follow through on that. But unfortunately, there was a guard, a police officer there, a guard who lost his life, and they have not found the perpetrator yet. So I hope they make the reward high enough that ultimately that person is called to justice, because it just isn't right. And we had a president that was sort of trying to normalize that behavior.
Yeah.
And, the pendulum swings. I'm glad to see it swinging back now.
Yeah.
And I hope we never go back to that again. Numerologically speaking, the number 9 is the last number. When we count, we start with 0. That's a symbol for God. And we go to the number 9, which is endings and completions. So Trump was 45. The reason why I'm saying that is Trump was the 45th president. 4 plus 5 is 9, which means we will never, and I can say that confidently, there may be people who have that type of mentality still around forever, but we will never have to deal with that type of energy on that level again.
Well,
that was goodbye. Goodbye to the past. That's what that was.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I don't know if my soul could take another one.
Now that spilled milk. That was goodbye to the past. That's America's past. That's the world's past. It's history now. And so we're going to see over the next decade or two. We're going to see democracy sweeping and people demanding a voice. We're going to see that, and we're going to see the majority is going to change. People who are in the minority, people who have enjoyed being the majority, are going to be in the minority. And this is what they've been fighting, but it's just a natural progression, going back to our original roots. The original person was of color. So as we grow and get rid of these inequities, and as we mature, it's going to be all that way again. That's what's happening. If you look around the world, that's what's going on. And to some people, they're freaking out because of it. But it's just a tide. It's a wave. It's God's plan. As we awaken to our oneness, the material world always responds to the interior world. So that's the natural progression of things.
Yes, love that.
That's what's coming up.
And I'm looking forward to it. So I want to shift gears just a little bit and go into your illustrious career, and then take us back down memory lane of how we got to here. I know we mentioned the education part. And one thing I like to ask my guests, there's going to be some people who are inspired by you, want to focus on numerology and possibly take that up. And I like to show people the transition of how people got to where they're at in their career. And I like to do it by asking a question. And I want you to entertain it for me for just a second, because I always like to ask what the person's first job was, because I like people to know that, hey, people don't just jump into this career by starting in the field of their profession. There's usually a process, right? And it's not where you start, it's where you finish. You can learn anything from that first job that helps you transition and catapult into where you're at today. So what was your first job, Dr. Craig?
Very interesting question. It says, no one came up to me and gave me a book and says, here, this is about numerology, read it. I heard a song. I followed my instinct. It led me to a book, which took me to the Library of Congress, just reading everything I could. I was my first client. But when I began to share with others, it was like, as I mentioned before, as a number 7, our mission is to discover truth and share it. So the discovery phase was fine, but when it was time to share it, I began to get a little nervous because I knew it was time to share. I'd be in a checkout line, and someone would mention their birthday, or they'd be wearing a name tag. And it would be spirit telling me, okay, this is what I've been preparing you for. Speak. And I would tell a person, the money you've been waiting for will be in the mailbox today, and then run out of the store. Or I would tell someone, you're expecting, don't be surprised if it's twins. And I would just disappear. But eventually, people started realizing this guy knows what he's talking about. So a buzz began, and I got invited to be a guest on a radio show. Mm-hmm. Actually, the way that happened was I heard a radio show and I went to visit the host because she had classes on spirituality. And I was in this state of awakening and yearning. And I tried to leave her office and she said, wait a minute, we're not done yet. You know about numerology. I said, what? I didn't tell you that. She said, well, I've heard people talking about Craig Wright and I thought that's why you came. You never mentioned it. I want you to be a guest on my show. Okay. So I go on the show. I'm doing readings with people to call on the air. And this is when my career started. I didn't plan this. I guess I was kind of naive because now I expect people to give out my phone number. But she gave out my phone number on the air. She didn't tell me she was going to do that. I'm just sharing my gift. What? People started calling me. I want a reading. Do you do classes? Do you do house calls? I'm having a party. Can you come do readings for me? And that's how I got started. I had to create services in response to the demand from being a guest on her show.
That's beautiful.
And
that sounds stressful and beautiful all at the same time.
Yeah, it was like, okay, God, I see.
So, Dr. Craig, are you telling me this was your first job, or this is a story prelude to that?
Now that was my first numerology job.
Oh, okay.
That was my first. That's how my career as a numerologist started.
Okay.
But my first, if you want to know my first job, regular job, my first regular job was working in the corner grocery store. Guess I was about 12 years old. I had to get a works permit. And I was working selling bubble gum and candy at the corner grocery store. That was my first job. But I thought you meant as a numerologist. I misunderstood you.
But I love that story too, so people can understand the transition.
Yeah, that was my first job.
All right. So you are a man, I would say, has a life well lived, and I'm sure there's plenty of lessons we can get from you. What would you say, what was one good lesson life has taught you in this journey of seeking truth and finding truth?
The most comforting lesson that life has taught me is that God is my supply. God is my supply. It has given me courage. Sometimes I've just maybe been a little too exuberant, But by stepping out on faith, by stepping out on faith. But that's the thing that I found is that God is real, and that we are literally the living word. That's what I've discovered.
I love that.
And I started off as an atheist. I was born into a family where no one talked about God in my family. No one took me to church every Sunday. I'm a metaphysical minister now, but I did not have that in my background. I was raised as an ethical culturalist. That was a humanistic organization created by Felix Adler in New York, and they believed religion didn't matter. You were supposed to do good because you were supposed to do good to help people. So God had nothing to do with it, and this was your only life you had. When this was over, it was over. So that's how I was raised. So life taught me that wasn't true, that we are literally created by the word of God. The best example I can give for listeners, if anyone's been involved with music, composers use letters for notes. A, E, B flat is a chord. So they use letters for notes and numbers for timing. A march is 4/4 time. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A waltz is 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So just as a composer uses letters for notes and numbers for timing, the letters in our name and the numbers in our birthday are symbols for the song that we play in the symphony of life. And I've validated it, I've quantified it, I've added it, I've subtracted it, I've read it, and it's true. I can literally say that's the biggest thing I've learned in this life is that God is real.
Yeah.
No matter what you call him. Let me put it that way. I'm not trying to exclude other religions, other belief systems, but if your system honors a higher power, that higher power is real.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's real. We are children of a higher power, and we have gifts, and we are here for a reason. We are not physical beings who have an occasional spiritual experience. We are spiritual entities having a temporary physical experience. This is part of our development. There are things we get tested with in the flesh we're not tested with in our spiritual state, in our natural state. So we have, like a seed, we have to be planted in soil. And all the elements of our body, match the elements of the soil, match the elements of the earth to a T. Even the percentage of water in our bodies matches that of the earth. So the body is just a physical shell, the earth, and our spirit, we're God's seed, planted in the spirit. And the scripture tells us seeds can fall on good soil or bad soil, but what they don't tell you is you're the soil. The scripture says, you reap what you sow. But what the scripture doesn't tell you is the mind is soil and thoughts are seeds. And you reap what you sow.
You are definitely speaking my language.
That's kind of what I've learned.
That is a good lesson. That is a good lesson.
There are forces working against what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Make no mistake. Make no mistake.
Apparently they caught on. They was like, wait, they planted some seeds over there. We gotta bring some bad weather. So let's say I got some folks who are probably listening to this. They're like, man, I love everything that Dr. Craig is putting down and he's dropping. Numerology thing and spirituality thing is something I want to further my development in. What would you give some advice to someone who would like to, start their career in numerology or rewire their thinking and their spirituality? If they're atheists or maybe they have their faith is not as high as they would like it to be at this time, but they're getting re-energized from this conversation. What some advice would you give to them?
Well, as I mentioned before, there's so many books on numerology now. You can go to the library if you're interested. I have a book. If you're interested, you can go to my website.
Okay. What's your book?
The name of my book is It All Adds Up. It All Adds Up.
I love that.
It's available on my website. You can get an ebook. You could download it and be reading today. In my book, I cover readings, forecasts, compatibility reports. So you could literally start a career utilizing my book, and that's available. Can I give my website?
Yeah, go ahead, give it.
Okay. That's available at www.CraigEWright. It's my name. CRAIG, the letter EWRIGHT.com. You can peruse the site. I have a free download on there. If you click on in the upper left-hand corner, it says online class form. And there's a list of how you convert letters to numbers and what each number means. And it's based on the alphabet. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. It's real simple. And every number has a meaning. It's only 9 of them, so it's easy to master. And what I found as I begin to look at numbers, it's sort of like turning on a radio. You turn on radio, you go to your favorite station, you know what it is, 98.9 or 95.6, whatever it is. And when you go to that station, you know what music is going to come. It's going to be rock or jazz based on that number. Well, that's how we are. That number is going to produce music. And your last name, Simmons, is a 30. And 0 is a symbol for God. So when you speak, you have to be very, very careful of what you say, because your words have the power of the Creator behind them. The name Martin was a 30. Martin Luther King Jr. Simmons is a 30. That's your last name. So it has that power behind it. It also means you came here to be of service, to help others. You're the rescuer. Okay, that name makes you the rescuer. Especially young people will be drawn to you and your instruction. So you make a great coach and a great advisor to the youth. but you're also a singer. I don't know if you're a singer. You're a singer. You've got the gift to sing. We didn't talk about that, but people, you have the voice that must be heard.
Yet.
You have the voice that must be heard. I'll put it that way. You have the voice that must be heard. That's the number 3.
Exercise my vocal cords.
And keep your ID with you. Nobody's ever going to believe your age when you tell them, because the 3 is a symbol for you. The 3 is also a very spiritual vibration, because it's the number of the story of Christ. Sought by 3 wise men, denied 3 times by 3 sleeping disciples. His main boy denied him 3 times before the rooster could crow. And we celebrate Easter because he arose on the 3rd day. And when he's asked, Master, why are you here? He says, I am here that you have life and have it abundantly. So as a number 3, expect abundant living. So that ties into philanthropy as well. You have philanthropic leanings, and God's going to fill your coffers so you can pursue that.
Yes, I receive all of that.
That happens a lot. I'll have an intention of something I want to talk about, but then God said, hey, I gave you this for a reason. Share that message. And I used to fight it and resist it, but now I realize that's why I'm here, to be that channel, to be that channel, not to try to become powerful. And that's what happens. The world tells you, go for the gusto, look out for number 1, try to build that ego up. But when you study the story of Christ, where he was crucified was called the point of the mind. Gethsemane means the point of the mind. So we have to crucify our egos in our minds so the Christ within us can awaken and we can be obedient to the Spirit. And that's how you have abundant life. That's what leads to abundance, tapping into who you are, why you're here. And there are many, many paths to do it. People use meditation, visualization. It just so happens I was geared toward the numbers. So God sends me the doubters, the people who the scientists who say, God's not real. So, oh yeah, well, check these numbers out. Wow.
How do you explain this, huh?
Exactly.
I love it.
But I like to say all roads lead to Joe. So it's all a link. It's all a branch. Religion to me means just reconnecting with the source. Whatever path you have to take, there are many, but all roads lead back to the source.
Absolutely. What do you think the future has in store for your industry, for numerology? What do you see?
Oh my goodness!
How do you see it? Yeah.
Man, like I said, when I first started, this book by Vera Stanley Alder, I think, was written in 1938, and I went to the library. They were saying, "What? Numer who?" Nobody knew what I was talking about. This was 1972, so I would use my leave, use my vacation time, and travel to Washington, D.C., park the car, walk to the Library of Congress, and you can't take those books out. You have to write them on a card, and you give it to a runner. You can get 6 at a time, and they have runners. You give them your cards, and they run and get the books to you. Bring them out, blow the dust off of them, and you start reading and studying. So that's how numerology was when I started. But now you can go to any library. You can go online, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people practicing numerology. So the future looks bright. People are awakening. When I started, I had ministers chasing me away from their church. Now I have ministers inviting me into their church to teach classes, to do workshops and seminars, because that age of Aquarius thing it's real, and that's where we are right now. So there's a great awakening. There's an awakening going on, and this is just one of the tools that's being used. You said, where's it going? I've been doing this since I woke up to it when I was 21. I went professional. That was in 1972. I started professionally in 1988, and I had my biggest year ever in 2020. And this year started out bigger than anything I've ever experienced. So it's growing. It's growing. I mean, it's just been an avocation, a part-time thing, but it's getting to the point where I'm able to make a living doing this, So that was remarkable.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that was remarkable. Yeah. And what's beautiful about it is, and I'm sure you feel the same way about what you're doing. When you're doing something that you know you love, it's not work.
No,
So
it's
if you
not.
find
Not at
something you
all.
love and you do that, you never work again a day of your life.
That's so true. So true. Everything you just said, like 2020 has been, as much as it's been a polarizing year, it's been a year of growth and development for a lot of people, from business to professional. It definitely has been for me. And there's a lot of people who've taken the time to focus on and go within for their self and business that have been able to elevate just like that in
Yes.
2020.
Because 2020 was a 22 year. 2 plus 0 plus 20 is 22. And that's a master number. Like I mentioned, the
Mm-hmm.
44, you're the master liberator, the speaker of truth,
Mm-hmm.
and the prophet. That's the 44. The 22 is called the master builder. So when things slowed down, people started focusing and started manifesting things. 2 and 2 is 4. The Bible tells us God created the earth on the fourth day. But as a
Mm-hmm.
numerologist, we know the message of the intellectuals and the spiritualists who wrote that story. They were telling us things come into physical manifestation under the number 4. And the 22 is the highest of all the fours. So, yes, there was a lot of progress. It's also a global vibration of 22, and that's why we saw the whole world react to injustice. The whole world reacted to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
yeah, that
what
was
does 2021, the year 2021, have in store for us?
okay. After the 22 year comes the
What is this year?
23. So this year is a 23 year. 2 plus 0 plus 21 adds up to 23, and 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 stands for freedom and change. Freedom and change. So right away we saw a
Mm.
sweeping change in the Senate, the House, red states turning blue, new president. Um, things are changing now. Numbers in the pandemic are starting to go down for a change, getting a handle on it. But 5 stands for freedom. So we gotta have to be careful to maintain our discipline in the 5 year. But it's a great year for promoting new ideas, new concepts. And the 23 leads us to protective porch, protective forces. So there are spiritual energy that is looking over the planet right now, guiding us and leading us to more protective, safe ports. On a personal level, this is a year to reach up to those in a position that can help you. People in high places are now willing to be more generous. So we're going to be able to see higher wages. We're going to be able to see people being able to stay at home, not come back to work, more freedom. But there's going to be a new normal. Things will never go back to being the same as they were. We're going to see travel pick up in the 5 year. But again, it's going to be a new normal with that too. So we're going to be able to. The 4 made it us feel, last year was a 22, 2 plus 4. So we felt boxed in, like we were in a box. The 5, freedom will come back. So we'll be able to open up, be able to move again. Although I think some people have been a little premature with it, but we're going to see this manifest in September. By September of this year, things will be a little more like they used to be. We may be still wearing
Okay.
masks, but things will be more controlled because, as I said, as long as it's existing in one place, as long as one person is dealing with this virus, it can come back and get us all. So, unfortunately, we're going to see third world countries are going to be the last, or people in Appalachia, or people in rural areas, we might as well call those third world countries too, going to be the last to get the vaccine. But ultimately, by September, there should be a level where we're going to be able to see some normalcy. So that's what 23 is going to bring in.
Okay. I like that. I like that. I know me and you could talk for hours. I'm gonna have you on my radio show too. Look out for an invite to that.
Awesome.
But
Thank you.
I like to keep these sessions good enough for a short drive so that people get the wealth of information. Let's do this. What projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you? And if you're driving, don't worry. I will have Dr. Craig email me all of these so I can put it in the show notes so you can have them. But where can people find you, Dr. Craig, and what are you currently working on?
Okay, you can again visit my website, www.craigerwright.com, and because I'm getting ready to start some classes. I've been approached by the Metaphysical University of Tacoma Park. And they've asked me, along with others, a brand new school just opening up, and they asked me to share my knowledge. Would I teach some classes? So I'm going to be teaching 3 classes. One is called The Jeremiah Effect, where we talk about your contract with Creator. One is called Perception versus Intention, where I talk about our heart's desire, what we're hoping we can do, and our personality number, where people are judging the book by the cover. So it's a class on intention versus perception. And then for all things, there's a season. That's my 3rd class, where I get into seasons. For all things, there's a season. And there are spiritual seasons, just like we have weather, storms, clouds, rain. There's spiritual seasons as well. And those classes are going to be made available. So I'm going to be posting how you can register for them on my website. So that's the biggest thing that I have going on right now.
Awesome. I love it. Love it. Dr. Craig, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I can't wait for you to come on the radio show, Guys Radio 1, that I do with my guys, so we can have another extensive conversation. Until then, everybody, thank you for tuning in, and make sure you follow Dr. Craig and get his book. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant man. And let's manifest for the rest of this year so we can have that freedom.
Awesome. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Risepreneurs Podcast.
Thank you for taking the journey.
Be sure to like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. And stay connected with Terrell on and off the show. Follow at Risepreneurs on all platforms.
Do what you love what you do. Don't chase the money. Let the money chase you.